Hello, everybody, and welcome to McRADcast Reviews. But we're doing a little rebranding. So, McRADcast Reviews, we decided that since we don't want to just be stuck with just reviews, but sometimes more discussions of not just a single show or movie, but more mediums in general. And it'll make sense more in a second when we get into this one. We're going to rebrand McRADcast Reviews as McRADcast B-Sides. So it'll be a little bit broader. That way we're not saying we have to review a particular thing. We can kind of talk about broader subjects. So today, McRADcast B-Sides brings you the topic of video games. And we're just going to kind of talk about the games that we played as kids, some of our favorites, and then just the progression of the industry and kind of where it's at now and what we like about them and all that good stuff. So we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, the thing, we'll probably do this subject multiple times.
Sure.
It's such a broad category.
And by the way, Josh and myself are not experts by any means in the industry. We're just going to talk about our perspective.
Yeah, this is just our opinions and perspective. Matter of fact, I rarely play video games anymore.
Yep.
I'm one of the sad adults who had to give it up for the most part.
I don't play as near as much as I used to, but I definitely play more than you do, I think.
I mostly just play retro. I've got a SNES Classic that got cracked or whatever. My buddy cracked it, and so he put like 100 games on it.
Oh, I got you.
And so I just play that mostly.
Nice. So yeah, video games. I'm a little bit older than Josh, but I'm one of the people that you would say born in the 80s, raised in the 90s type thing.
Yeah.
So I was born in 1982.
Yeah.
So
I was an 85 baby. So
I was 7 at the end.
You can remember the 80s. I can't.
Sure, but I wasn't like. Yeah,
you weren't imprinted yet.
Yeah, so I had a hand-me-down Atari 2600, the OG, and then I had a Nintendo. I'm trying to think of my progression through video game consoles. So it was Atari 2600 was a hand-me-down, the original Nintendo NES.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have a ton of money, so it wasn't like every time there was an upgrade.
Yeah.
And then when it came down to there was the classic war of
Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis.
Yeah, I had a Sega Genesis.
Oh.
I was a Sega Genesis guy. Yeah.
See, I was fortunate enough to have enough friends to where I got to play the Sega Genesis. My mom, we didn't have a lot of money either, so it's really weird how often she must have sacrificed a ton.
Sure.
To get us these things, man, and you just didn't realize it at the time. But I had the NES with we didn't have a ton of games for it. We only had 2 or 3 games for it. So it's like
did you have the dual cartridge Super Mario Duck Hunt?
Yes, it came with the thing and the gun and everything. It actually came with the system when she bought it.
Yeah.
I can remember that. And then we had a couple of more games, but we got it toward the end of its run, and then we got the SNES pretty quick after it came out. I was pretty jealous of all my friends that had it early on. And about 6 or 8 months later, she forked over the dough for that thing, and that had to be a ton of money back then.
So that was the thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because the thing people don't understand is video game consoles have essentially been roughly the same price over the years.
Yeah.
Now some of them have been more. I don't think the NES and the SNES were like $500 or $600 like some of these have been.
No, yeah,
probably the 300 range, 400 range, somewhere in there.
Oh yeah, I can remember. She got me a Game Boy, and it was like $180 or $190, and then the games for it were $40 a piece, and
so
that's pretty standard now.
And I'll come back to the Game Boy because I got a little bit of knowledge on those because I did some modding on those.
Yeah, I remember when you were doing that.
But so I was the kid though who all my friends, same scenario, were getting the SNES, and they all had it for 6 or 8 months. And when it came time for, I was like, okay. My mom was like, oh, and it was a birthday or something came up, Christmas or something, and I was like, what do you want? And I wanted a Super Nintendo, but then I was like, wait a minute, none of my friends have a Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
And I could be the guy, I could be the, I can go to their houses and play the SNES. They can come here.
But they can't go anywhere other than here to play the Sega.
So I was like that exclusive thing.
Yeah.
And then another buddy of mine later, or maybe around the same time, got one, but I was the Sega Genesis kid, and man, Sega Genesis had some great fucking games.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you could there's still that, you know, some of the retro guys still get into that conversation. I would probably admit that the SNES but just because Nintendo as a company is,
oh yeah, I think it pretty much handily won that war.
But
in retrospect,
there's some really, really good games on Sega
oh
Genesis.
yeah, at the time, it felt like they were neck and neck.
Because man, Sonic the Hedgehog Part 2 is probably one of the. I honestly still think that that does stand up against most Super Mario games.
Yeah,
and I know that's a bold statement.
Yeah,
but dude, Sonic 2, that game is fantastic, dude.
I thought all the Sonic, they were just so frustratingly hard.
Oh sure.
In the and back in that day, and that's why I didn't play as many video games as most of the people, and never became the expert because my hand-eye coordination and my fast twitch reflex and all that stuff was never good enough for games like that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so I loved watching it be played more than I actually liked playing it, because it was a lot less frustrating when somebody was doing something successful in the game. You could actually see more of the game.
Yeah.
That's why I preferred Super Mario World. Because you could, if you sucked at it, you could get better at it in a way that you could not in Sonic, right?
Sure.
It wasn't as frustrating to be as bad at Super Mario World as it was to be bad at Sonic.
There was something too, and you're right, but there was something though about Sonic when you got into a groove.
Oh man, you could definitely hit. See, and a lot of people talk about that peak. You know what I mean? That moment of zen almost, and. You know, we're going to get way off track here, but I have actually experienced it in video games before several times, and it's literally the only time in my life, probably other than a couple of other outside times, that I've experienced it. And it was, of all things, Gran Turismo 2? Endurance races.
Okay, yeah.
Literally, nobody else I knew even cared about those games. They were like, what are you doing? And I don't even know why I picked it up, but I thought it was cool as shit.
I was a fan.
And
getting all the different cars.
And so that's literally how I learned about cars.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't have a dad when I was growing up, so that was how I learned about cars, was through Gran Turismo of all things, and the endurance races, after you beat most of the regular races in the game, I mean, they were literally hours long.
Sure.
And so you literally just fall into this groove of doing the exact, and I would notice that it's like one of the, when you like go into a trance when you're driving and you don't know how you got there. Right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? That sort of thing. That's how I would be in the game, and I would notice that my lap times were significantly better in the trans than they were when I was paying attention. And it's so crazy how that works.
Yeah, you get into that zone, man.
Yep.
And it's funny because I think that's kind of speaks to, I think, what makes video games so cool is that there's something out there for everybody, and every game has a gameplay loop.
Yep.
Right? It has something that gets you in. Some are way more advanced than others. Some are more simple. But there's always a loop. There's always something that you're striving for, and you get caught in that, do this and then not get this, and, you advance or whatever it is. It could be.
And it's in our basic biology. It has to be.
Yeah, of course. That's why we get so caught up in it.
That's
why they're so universally played. It's not just like one demographic. It's, people would have you think that the demographics that play video games are the Nick Beard in his mom's basement.
And there are a lot of that.
Of course.
And they play it more often, probably. That demographic probably plays it heavier than the rest of them on average.
I don't know, man. I don't think so anymore.
Well, yeah,
because
maybe not
you got to think about, if you really want to talk about gaming, I mean, as much as I'm not a fan of mobile, like phone games,
enormous success,
and especially like in Asia, geez, man, those things kill. But anyway, so to kind of bring it back, so my evolution was go back to Nintendo. So obviously I had the greats, but once again, not a lot of money. So my front door just opened. That was terrifying.
Yeah, I think it's okay though. I can't see anyone. Maybe just ghost.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That scared the shit out of me, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, not a lot of money.
I'll keep an eye on it. You keep talking.
Yeah, not a lot of money. So I didn't have like every brand new game that came out, but I had some of the bigger ones. Like the NES came with the Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt like split game. Came with the zapper gun and all that good stuff. Had that. Had Excite Bike, obviously. That one was huge because you could, you could create your own track and you could do the regular races. So I mean, we would spend hours just making. It was always funny to me on an Excite Bike. You would make a track, and you were like, what felt like you spent hours doing, and it would be like 14 seconds long. And like, "Meh," and you were at the finish line, and you're like, but I spent so much time making this track.
Excite Bike was so good, but not good at the same time.
Exactly, but we didn't know.
Oh,
like when you go back,
ignorance is bliss.
When you go back, you're like, oh, this is one of those games. You're like, I can play this for 14 seconds, and I'm good to go. And I was actually going to talk about that. So there's some that hold up, right? And this might be blasphemy, but it is what it is. When it comes to the NES. There's not as many games.
There's almost none.
I can go back and play and go like, oh man.
That's why I didn't get an NES Classic and break it because there are, dude. And I'll be honest, some of the Super Nintendo games that I had cracked and put on there, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play. And I started to play them. I was like, I do not like this game anymore.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Well, there's a thing about video games, and we talked about this a little bit with on the episode with Chad and Colby, is that video games were not as advanced back then. So a lot of them were just insanely hard to create that longevity of the game because first of all they weren't as advanced, but also they weren't releasing like there's a new game coming out every day now.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying that like the big publishers are doing one every day, but I mean you have some kind of video game like when I get on when I log into my Xbox and I look at the Xbox store and stuff.
Yeah.
Literally every day there's something new on there.
Yep.
So it's like obviously we didn't have that in the 80s.
No,
so
it was a
like,
big deal when a game came out.
If it sucked, it was like, oh, geez, we got to wait another year for.
You would go to Service Merchandise or
KB
Toys, or there were select few places where you could go, Walmart and all that. And Walmart didn't even in the beginning, as far as I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was a very niche thing.
I don't remember getting video games at Walmart. I'm sure I did, but I think it was more like Service Merchandise or toys. Maybe not even Toys R Us.
It was Electronics Boutique.
Yep.
Back then.
And then it turned to EB Games, and then it was.
And then GameStop effectively took over all of those spots.
But yeah, you didn't have so it was a lot of those gameplay loops where it was just a hard game, and a lot of it became.
Ninja Gaiden.
Oh, geez, man.
Fuck that game.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible game. It's just so hard.
It's so difficult.
But then they did those ones on Xbox later that were cooler, and it was like, okay, they were still really hard, but it was like there was more to it.
Yes.
But I gotta say, man, there are a few NES games. I'll go back and play Zelda, the original one, through.
God, I hated that game. It was so frustrating.
Really?
Oh man.
So that was the game that I credit. I still credit that as the game that made me a gamer.
Oh yeah.
Because at that point, it was mostly side-scrolling, platformers.
Mario-style game,
yeah. And at that point, it was like I don't think I even beat Mario Brothers until I was an adult.
Super Mario World?
No, the original.
Yeah, I
Super
never
Mario
to this day have beat. Super
I definitely
Mario
have, but it was I was in my 20s, I think, when I went back and played it. But it was still I'm just put it in and play it for a while, kill some time, But the Legend of Zelda was the first game where it was like. It wasn't an open world. I mean, it was essentially. I mean,
it felt like it back then.
Well, because you didn't have to, necessarily do stuff in a particular order.
Sequential order.
Some of them I think you did, and I might be completely wrong on that. But it was the first game where it was like you collected stuff and got stronger, and like it was like, wait a minute, like what is this?
It was almost like the beginnings of a D&D nerd world.
Yes, because it wasn't just run through the board and smash some enemies. It was literally like find the thing.
Yeah.
Get the sword.
Some of those games were too open.
Yeah.
They did not give you enough clues.
Oh, yeah.
You were like, what in the fuck am I supposed to be doing right now?
No hand-holding whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have to do the dungeons in the first one, except for the one with the very last one with Ganon. But I think you can do them in any order. I'm almost positive.
I think you could.
Maybe there might be a couple that you had to unlock somehow, but I think you could pretty much do them whatever. So in that sense, it was an open-world game. And it was like, oh wow! And to me, that was just like insane. It was like,
blowing.
What? I have a bow and arrow now, and I have a boomerang now, and I have a lantern, and all this. I mean, it was crazy. And that was the game that really made me a gamer, in the sense that I was like, I want to explore these worlds.
Yeah.
And I had dipped my toe into D&D at that point because my uncle had played, and him and my cousin were older. Obviously, and then I would kind of sit in. I say I played back then. It really, they just let me sit and roll some dice.
We were really lucky to when I was a kid. I think I was 7 or 8 years old. We were playing D&D with older people that you know what I mean would sit down with a bunch of younger people and just fucking let us fuck around.
Yep.
You know
I was about 7.
Yeah.
And that was 2nd edition.
Oh,
we're getting. By the way, folks, we're getting real nerdy right now.
Yeah.
That was 2nd edition advanced D&D.
Yep.
And
AD&D is what they called it.
Holy crap, man!
They called it Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
For all my
AD&D.
D&D nerds out there,
THACO
represent.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. It's terrible, man.
Yeah,
but at the time, it was just what we had, so we didn't know that. And some people are probably right now like, "Oh, I love that." Yeah. To each their own. To each their own.
Yeah, you're a terrible human if you like THACO.
But I just can't deal with it. So back then, you almost had to have like charts and fucking. You had to know like advanced math to do stuff.
Basically, yeah.
It was,
but it taught you a lot.
Sure.
You learned a lot from it.
And but that was those games for me. And man, my favorite game still probably of all time is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past on SNES. Man, that game is so good, and it's charming enough still.
Yep. It holds up
that I can still go back and play it.
It holds up.
Oh man, I love that game.
It still holds up. It
like I still get giddy at the certain parts where I'm like, oh, I'm doing the thing. You know.
Yep.
I love it.
I think it is definitely in the running of best game of all time.
Sure.
I think it would have to be in the running. It's not my personal favorite, but I do recognize it as one of the most influential, one of the best with content, one of the best as far as gameplay is concerned and how it feels.
Yeah.
And the sound of the game, because that's such an important part of the games that gets overlooked is the sounds. The soundtrack, the sound effects, all of that stuff. Those things get overlooked. My favorite games tend to be slower paced, more methodical RPG style.
I'm playing one now, and I'll get into this later. I'm not going to get into it now because it's a newer game I'm playing that I think you would absolutely love.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to talk about it yet.
All right.
So now to go back and say, like I said, some NES games I can't play. Now Atari games are even worse because it's like
they're unplayable.
I appreciate the hell out of what they did for us. Now, there's some I can still play in like an arcade setting for high score purposes stuff. Like if we're kind of trying to do that, like Galaga.
Yep.
I can play the shit out of some Galaga. At work, they put the little mini arcade things in the break room, and we'll have like tournaments and stuff there. It's fun.
Yeah.
But man, Barley's...
Like Grandma's Boy.
Yeah, Barley's brew house, which is like the building's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
They had a Galaga machine back there, and dude, I used to own... at Galaga.
That's awesome.
It was so. I mean, it's literally
just back and forth straight.
But when you learn the patterns, because they're the same every time, they look random. They're not random, at all. Like there's definitely a program to it, and it was just fun to like figure that out, and then like get into that loop.
You know what's crazy is I was always really amazed at the people that figure out the patterns of the games, because it takes very special people to figure those things out.
Some of those were pretty easy, but some of them can be kind of tough.
But like Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Oh yeah,
go ahead and figure that out, guy. It literally takes. How many people genuinely figured it out?
I used to know the code for Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
like just off the top, and I can't remember it now.
Yeah, but like how many people genuinely knew without looking in a magazine or you know what I mean, hearing about it or hearing through the grapevine. This is the kind of the sequence that you have to do to beat this guy and that guy, and those people were brilliant in their own way, right?
For sure,
they were pattern recognition people.
I'm so terrible at that game.
Oh,
that's another one I didn't beat until my 20s. Everyone could beat Glass Joe or whatever. But after that, it was like, fuck.
Oh, man, they got difficult, son. Oh, yeah. Difficult.
Speaking of codes and video games, recently, just very recently, this episode won't come out for a while in relation to this thing happening, but the guy who created the Konami code, up, down, left, right, BA, start.
Yep.
He passed away. Japanese fella. I can't think of his name right now. Passed away recently. Rest in power.
Yeah.
Because
that is the most iconic.
Use that. So I used that the most on Contra to get 30 lives, but I know it worked for other Konami games.
Oh, a bunch of them. Yeah.
And they did different things.
And they have since put it in a bunch of games since then.
Yeah, and there's so many references to it in pop culture. And
Ready Player One, I think. Didn't they have a reference to it?
Yeah. So, and if you wanted to play. It's funny because start is not necessarily part of the code. It's just what started the game.
Yep.
So in Contra, if you wanted to play 2 players, it was actually up, down, left, right, B, A, select, start. Because you had to pick select to get the second player.
Yeah.
So that part's not really part of it. It's really just the up, down, left, right, B, A.
Yep.
Then you start the game.
Yep.
But, anyway, nerdy.
Oh, man, yeah.
Deep dive into the
Deep
nerdiness.
dive.
I say that's like really not that.
That's
really
pop culture
That's really
at
not
this
that obscure. But yeah. So kind of advanced past. I didn't have another. So after the Sega Genesis, I didn't have another system until I bought myself a PS1. Like way after it was out. Too.
I don't even think. I may not have owned a PS1 until almost the very end of its
That's
run.
what I did almost, because I was, man, when I bought a PS1.
Of course, it had a really long run.
Sure, but when I bought a PS1, I think I was either like into high school or right out. And we're talking like 2000, 2001.
Yeah, that's pretty late in the run.
And the one I bought actually was
that was almost PS2 time.
Yeah, you remember
it was definitely PS2
You remember
time.
the little guy?
Yeah, the
PS1?
baby. Yeah, the baby
That's the one I
one.
bought.
Oh. Yeah, you did buy it at the very end of its run.
But a friend of mine had a Nintendo 64.
Yep.
And man, some great games on that.
God.
So, and this is something that a lot of people still that aren't in the video game world at all, even a little bit, don't understand, is that N64 and PS1 graphically similar, very similar.
Yep.
Same tier.
Yep.
Right. Nintendo was just a hard-headed company that stuck with cartridges.
Yes.
And they're back to cartridges now, which is funny.
Yep.
For the Switch, but yeah, the same.
Same.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the 64 was a 64-bit, and the PlayStation was a 32-bit
Was
system.
it?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
PlayStation wasn't 64?
No, it was a 32-bit system.
Oh wow.
Yep. But it, for whatever reason, the way they programmed it, it was graphically superior most of the time.
Those polygons they use for that,
man.
It's funny because back at the time it was
Dude, if you go back and, in my opinion, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, Final Fantasy VII is probably the greatest game ever.
Yeah, I think a lot of people share that sentiment, and it's definitely, it probably falls for me right under A Link to the Past for me.
It's actually not my favorite game of all time still. It's another Final Fantasy game. But 7, if we're going to visit the PlayStation, it was literally the king of that
It was
system.
the first game I played that was that long.
Yeah.
And I was like, what
60
is
hours.
this?
See, and that's the crazy thing is at the point that Final Fantasy VII dropped, I had already played multiple Breath of Fire games, several other RPGs on the Super Nintendo, and I had fallen in love with the RPG.
Yep.
I was like, this is my jam. You know what I mean? I get time to think about my next move. I get time to, you progress through a story. Your characters get better as they go. All of that stuff was appealing to. It was like D&D in video game form, right? It was the early bits of that. And you could save multiple files so several people could play, but you all played your own game. You know what I mean? It wasn't a multiplayer game. Everybody would literally sit around. I can remember getting, I didn't have a PlayStation. RC had one. And we would all jam into his bedroom and play Final Fantasy VII one at a time. Yep. And watch the other one.
Yeah, I had a buddy, Brian Thomas, who's no longer with us, rest in peace. Love that guy with my whole heart. He had a PlayStation. And, dude, it was funny. It's funny to think now because when I think about this, I always do this thing in my head where I'm like, well, he didn't have internet, but back then you didn't have to.
No.
Now I always think about if you have a system, it almost has to have internet.
Has to have internet, yeah.
And he lived out
in the sticks,
way out next to this pig farm, and it always smelled like pig shit. Like if the wind shifted, you're like, oh, there it is. And we would hang out and play Final Fantasy VII, and we would do the same thing. Like we would help each other, and then I would play and he would play, and then we would play Twisted Metal. And man,
Twisted
we
Metal
played
2.
shit. Oh, and you might know a little something about this one. Not on the PlayStation. Well, no, just on N64, I think. A little GoldenEye.
Yeah, we can go. I think PlayStation was actually the better of the systems overall.
I think so. I think there's definitely some argument there.
And there were questions about it when it released because Sony was new to the game.
Sure.
At that time, and everybody was like, what is this crazy mess?
Right.
And it was so, the quality of game, the amount of quality games, I do not think the world was aware of what was happening in games at that
Oh,
time.
no way. Not at all.
And
where it was about to go. No way.
The quality of games back then was so high. I mean, you had a bunch of duds too, but there were so many good games on the original PlayStation. Armored Core and Twisted Metal, like you said.
Dude, Armored Core was so good.
There were so many good RPGs, Legend of Dragoon and Legend of Legaia, and Chrono Trigger was on the Super Nintendo, but they re-released it on the
Tales of Symphonia. Was that on PlayStation?
That was on PlayStation 1, and then they released a second one on 2, I think.
Well, there's that series is the Tales of series, so it's not always this. It's like always a different
tale of something or other.
'Cause
Wild Arms was on the PlayStation originally.
Because there's one that's on the Switch, even Tales of Vesperia or something like that. It's the same.
Yep.
Same concept.
Style. But where the Nintendo 64 won, in my opinion, was bonding. You could bond with each other more in the games they produced for the 64 than you could any other system in the history of ever.
Sure. But here's the thing, man, and this is where Nintendo wins every time in this one area, is their exclusives are almost unfuckwithable.
Yep.
Like Mario is almost always going to be a good game.
Yep.
Almost always. Like I can't think. Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah. But GoldenEye was worth its weight in gold,
dude. But my one argument for N64 is, several arguments is, the Mario 64. Holy shit.
Was incredible.
Star Fox.
Incredible.
Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, all right, man.
Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some really, really great, games.
WCW versus NWO.
I was going to say that one, and my buddy Ryan May Rugg, if you're listening to this, we played the shit out of WCW versus NWO. Yes, that's it. Yeah, and man, and I was so at that point in my life, and we've talked to Richard and Josh on the show, and those guys are huge wrestling fans, and we talked about some modern wrestling stuff there. At this point, even then, I was kind of out of wrestling. You're talking like what 90?
That was right at the tail end.
97, 98.
I was still into the NWO thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So I was already out. I wasn't a fan. I mean, I would watch it, but it wasn't really on my radar anymore. Yeah. But that game was so damn fun.
Oh my gosh!
And man, we played.
The fact that you could get 4 people to play was a game changer.
And all we would do is just talk mad shit.
Oh
play
man.
Dude, it was so fun.
So good. And that's the same thing with GoldenEye. You know, nobody is allowed to crouch, and you can't play Odd Job. You know what I mean? It was like house rules.
And you would always watch someone else's screen to find out where they were, because it was a split screen.
No, you know what? We literally had rules. Like, if we catch you screen watching, we will murder you.
But everyone did it at some point. I'm not saying like that was your main strategy. But.
And I was too honest. I've still to this day, my biggest weakness in life is I've always been too honest. And so I legitimately, as soon as I was like, no screen watching, when we established those rules, I did not screen watch ever again. And to this day, I play like Call of Duty with my girlfriend's 8 or 9-year-old. Mm-hmm. He screen watches like a motherfucker, and I'm terrible at the game already.
So there's split screen in that?
You can. He's got like a PlayStation 3 version.
Oh, I gotcha.
Right, and it's not hooked up to the internet or anything. And so the only thing he can do is in house, and you can play multiplayer.
Cool. I gotcha. Yeah.
You can play multiplayer that way. And he's like, "Hey, will you come play with me?" I'm like, "Man, I'm terrible at that game, but all right, I'll come hang out with you. You can kill me a bunch, and that's cool." But it's so frustrating. Because he'll, like, give himself away. Like, oh, what are you doing in that room? And be like, what? Bitch, you don't see me. And so, it drives me insane to this day for people to screen watch. And I, tried to explain to him, hey, buddy, don't watch my screen. And
it's tough. Because I think it's just, like, that's, like, that whole thing of, like, well, I'm trying to get the advantage or whatever. Yeah. And, I get it. But yeah, man, N64, I think ultimately PlayStation just did this thing that like really blew because I mean at the time you had Nintendo, you had the big players were Nintendo and Sega. I mean you had let's see, you had other stuff like the Neo Geo and these things that just didn't make it, and some of those things were cool.
Virtual Boy.
Ooh. That thing is a big old turd. I had one, by the way.
The Dreamcast came along.
The Dreamcast was amazing, and people don't know that because it didn't do well.
Yeah.
Dude, that thing was really good.
Yeah.
Like graphically,
I wanted one really bad.
Graphically and game wise, like quality games, really good fucking graphics. It just didn't. For whatever reason, it did not. It wasn't marketed well, or even if it was, it just. I don't know what happened with that.
Yeah.
There's somebody out there that knows exactly the story.
The fucking controllers were terrible though.
Pretty bad, but that's still a really great system, all things considered. But at the time, you had Sega and Nintendo were pretty much the big players.
Were the big hitters.
Sony came out, and they came out busting heads, man. And,
still one of the great, highest selling.
PS4 destroyed this generation.
Oh, did it?
Oh, dude,
But the PS1, everybody expected to fall flat, and I mean, it just took off, man. It just was insane how.
Well, no, I don't know if they expected it to. It was just not knowing what to expect.
Yeah,
we're playing. That was Were they the first disc-based system? So it's like, what is this even going to be? Or
I think there may have been like a...
Oh, there was Sega CD.
Yeah.
And did the Dreamcast come before the...
After PlayStation.
Yeah.
It was actually like generation 3.5.
Yeah. But the Sega CD, dude, that thing, it's nostalgically cool.
There was something... it wasn't Sega CD. There was some crazy system in the middle of all of that. I forget. It had a crazy name, and I totally forget it. And I don't really want to look it up because it's going to take forever.
Oh yeah, I'm not, and we're not doing this about the history of systems or whatever. But anyway, but no, man, there's a lot of great games there. And then I got out of gaming for a while just because whatever, I was like bar hopping and whatever. But my reintroduction to gaming after the PS1 was, I think a lot of people skip this one because we were like kind of hitting young adulthood at the time. But I got a GameCube.
I loved GameCube.
Man, the thing was awesome.
When we lived at the apartment together, we had a PlayStation 2.
Yeah. And I had my GameCube there, too, I think. Because we used to play Smash Brothers Melee.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I had a GameCube before I moved out of my mom's house and into that apartment.
Yep. But I had the classic purple one.
Yep.
I love that thing, too, man.
I gave it to my ex-nephew, I guess you call him. I'm not married to that person that was related to him anymore. But...
that was a pause there.
All right, my bad. Awkward. But as far as I know, he still has it. And he got all the games, Super Mario Strikers and Melee, which is...
Dude, so now Super Mario Sunshine gets a bunch of shit. I loved that game.
Oh, yeah?
I fucking loved it.
I never played it.
It was just this weird thing where you had this like backpack super soaker thing.
Yeah.
And you had to go clean up the island, and like that was kind of the loop, was like do that and get the stars. Yeah. And I loved that game. And now people are like, that game fucking sucked. And I'm just in the corner like, I like that.
Before we get too far away from the PlayStation, my favorite game of all time was on the PlayStation, Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah. So that one I never had the brain for, I don't think, or the patience or something. But I know a lot of people that love that game, and I think I can appreciate like what it is and what it did.
Yeah.
And then it became like almost weird, like you couldn't find it.
Yeah. People
were like, I want that game, and it was like, why can't people find that game?
Yeah. I found a copy of it the other day at my house, a hard copy of it, and I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't have access to a PlayStation at all. But if for whatever reason I just didn't get rid of it, it's just there, and it's not even in its original case or anything. It's just stowed away. So I should probably look at selling it, maybe. Framing it. Who even knows?
Yeah.
But, my favorite game of all time. I played it in emulator form. I played it, downloaded it before. Everything any way that I could get my hands on that game, I would play it for 100 hours.
Sure.
You know what I mean, it's some ridiculous number. And so,
does it have like a traditional campaign, like a story going on, and you play through the thing, and you just, because it's like a tile turn-based strategy.
It's a strategy turn-based tile game, effectively.
It's not hexagon style though. It's like
just squares.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, basic bitch style.
Yeah.
I mean, if you played through it, it would take you 50 to 60 hours to play straight through. Most people would put 80 to 100 hours in it via the side missions and leveling all your extra people up and that sort of thing. There were so many extra things in that game. Like extra things. You could get Cloud from 7. You could get all these extra characters that didn't have anything to do with the story specifically, but were just like side missions. It was just such a good quality game in my opinion, and it spoke to me on so many levels for whatever reason. But, almost nobody knows about it. You know what I mean? It's one of those weird things that it's kind of like a weird niche thing. Yeah.
So I think I spoke out of turn earlier when saying that Final Fantasy VII was my favorite Final Fantasy game. Because now when I really think about it, I think one of mine is one that probably doesn't get that much love. It's Final Fantasy 9.
I was hoping you weren't going to say 8.
No, I didn't. I skipped it. I started playing it, and I just couldn't. Something about it just didn't grab me.
I did not like 8 at all.
I really liked 9, though.
I loved 9.
Yeah.
I didn't play it until a year and a half, 2 years ago, actually.
Oh, wow.
I basically stopped playing video games right after Final Fantasy 8, give or take, and never got to play 9 because it was on the PlayStation 2, right?
It was on PlayStation.
Was it?
Yep.
Oh.
And the only reason I know that is because I never had a PlayStation 2, and I played it in its original. And that was still when games had like 4 discs.
Yeah.
You had a switch in the middle.
Yeah.
There's like
because Final Fantasy 7 was the first big game. Like you were like, oh, and then Star Ocean.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, we got.
They re-released that because it
was a 2-disc.
Is that
game.
the one that's? It's not really turn-based. It's like action combat inside of a turn-based.
It is
thing.
basically, if you've played Final Fantasy 15, it's like the predecessor to that combat style.
But doesn't it zoom into like a side scroll style?
Kind of. It's actually kind of like a 45-degree angle, top-down look.
Like isometric almost.
Yeah, and then you can see people moving in what feels like 3D space on the battle map, basically. And they're all running around at random, is what it seems like. And you're halfway controlling your main character, and the other characters are pre-programmed how you decided what, if they need to heal, if they need to support, if they need to attack, or whatever they need to do. But they're in general form, right? They just do whatever. They run around attacking whatever they see fit to attack.
What was so? There's a couple that I haven't mentioned that I love a lot. Earthbound.
Oh, such a good.
Love that game.
game.
It's such a weird because it's like modern day.
Yep.
And on the surface, you're almost like, this is going to be lame. And then you get locked into it, and it's so good. And did you ever play Chrono Trigger?
I loved Chrono
Trigger. That might be a runner. That might be.
It's definitely in my top 5 or 10 easily. And it is one of the most underrated games of all time that almost nobody knows about.
I don't know. I think in the video game community, I think
it's definitely heralded. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think just people who did play Final Fantasy VII that don't game anymore might not know what Chrono Trigger is. And man, what a great game.
It came before 7, but
it's a great game.
Yeah.
Was it a
Super Nintendo game, and they re-released it on PlayStation.
Yeah, I played it on PlayStation, and that game is fucking fantastic.
And I never got to play all the way through Chrono Cross. It was like the sequel.
I didn't either. I don't know why.
It just landed flat. Oh, you know what's super dope that I forgot all about? Suikoden. Did you ever play Suikoden?
I did.
Holy crap, what a good set of games. Just so open-worldy and impossible to get all the characters, 108 characters, and you're like, what the fuck? And you build your own base, and all of them go back to your base when you discover the new characters. Such a cool game. If you guys have never played Suikoden, go download that ROM or emulator or whatever.
Yeah, you can definitely find that. I'm sure, easily. But yeah, man, so Final Fantasy 9, though, that was one that got me. I loved it. I loved Vivi, the little black mage.
I've thought about getting a tattoo of Evie. He's such a cool little dude.
He is cool.
Yeah.
But I liked that story a lot. But man, it's hard to say with Final Fantasy VII, that storyline and like that big epic moment. And if you haven't played it by now, I don't really know that it's like a big spoiler or whatever.
Nope.
But like the death in that game that just wrenches your heart, and you're like, dang, and you're like invested in it, and then it's just such a great villain, such a great hero, and
the sounds of the game once again brilliant. The music in that,
and they're doing that remake, and I don't know how to feel. We'll see how it goes. You
know where I stand on that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just not real happy about it.
Yeah, because they are doing the action combat. It's like a mix. It's like
a bastard form of the game.
It's like a turn-based action thing, and whatever. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to love it, and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't hate on anybody for loving it. It's just not my Final Fantasy VII, right?
I tell you what's crazy. This is PlayStation era stuff here, but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But the Final Fantasy VII thing is like, I don't know. We'll see. I don't like that they're doing it episodically. Yeah, like they're releasing like part 1 of the game, and I'm like, are you doing that because you're trying to just make more money on it, or is it legitimately because
you're expounding upon it?
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I just don't.
My guess is that's not what's happening.
But PlayStation era, man, there's some stuff that didn't hold up at all, and it's not because they weren't good games. It's because the control schemes on some of those games were fucking terrible.
Yes.
Because they hadn't worked out the camera stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And the games I'm talking about.
Tactics is like that sometimes too.
Do you know what game I'm about to mention? Huge PlayStation release.
Metal Gear Solid.
Oh no, but that kind of fits in there.
Yeah.
Resident Evil. Those tank controls, man. You know what I'm talking about?
But Resident Evil 2, and here I'll argue this point. We're going to get deep into the weeds here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're still here, then you're going to appreciate this conversation. Resident Evil 2 is the best Resident Evil of all time.
You know they did a remake, right?
Yes.
And it's
with
really,
real controls.
It's like really good.
Yeah,
too.
that's what I heard. Resident Evil 2 is the greatest of all time, and I'll tell you why. Because of the tank controls.
Ooh.
And because there is panic in you.
Ooh.
When it takes you that long to turn around.
Oh yeah, man.
I didn't know about the R2 to turn around. Or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever the button was, yeah.
To do the instant turnaround.
Ugh.
And so
I'm having like flashbacks over here.
And you could feel the anxiety build. That's what you need with a zombie game.
Well, but it translates really well with the remake, though.
Oh yeah,
it does, and I don't know if they tweaked some stuff to make that happen.
Oh, they had to have made
but it definitely
they had to have made the enemies more aggressive.
Not so much aggressive as like, dude, like back then, shooting something in the head didn't mean shit.
Possible, yeah.
And yeah, the actual controls themselves. But no, they did a really good job of the tension building for those. And I was never like a huge fan of the Resident Evil games, but they were groundbreaking games, man.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Resident Evil 4, now I played the shit out of that one. And I remember.
I think I played 5. Is 4 the one? 5 is the one in Africa, right?
4 or 5? 5 is the more action style.
Yeah, it's in Africa, I think.
4 was the one where you go to that like
4.
commune of like crazy farmers.
Yeah,
and
I missed 4.
Yeah.
I didn't get
well,
to play
I played that one on GameCube.
Yeah,
and me and Scott Norton played the shit out of that game, man. Loved some Resident Evil 4.
I just think they're brilliant games.
Sure.
And 5 was kind of a dud.
5 and 6 get a lot of flack. Like they're fun games, but they did that thing where they fundamentally changed the game.
And people tend to revolt,
and some people just don't like when you do that. But when you get to like,
I played the shit out of 5. Don't get me wrong.
When you get to installment 5, though, it's like you got to do something.
I played the shit out of 5, and I enjoyed it. But also, it was I could have been fine without it.
Sure,
you know what I mean. It's not like it. I don't look fondly back upon that game. Oh yeah, I love it.
So yeah, GameCube. I got back into some games and we played a lot of, even at that apartment, we played a lot of Smash Brothers Melee.
Yep.
I had that Super Mario game. They did that re-release of it was a disc that had like 4 or 5 Zelda games on it. Oh. It had like the original Zelda. What was the second one?
Link to the Past?
No.
Oh, yeah, you're talking that
Adventures of Link, which is
that's a rough one.
Side scroller stuff.
A rough one.
And then it had Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on it.
And I'll be honest, I'm not balls deep into the Legend of Zelda like most people. I enjoy them. I think they're amazing games. I'm just, once again, not great at them, right? And so I just tend not to play them as much. From an outsider's perspective, who only got to play bits and pieces of all of them mostly and never beat most of them, Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, sure.
It's the best one of all.
I think most people, because I mean, like I said, I'm just a few years older than you. I think most people in your age range probably tend to go that way.
Yeah.
But I just played so much of Link to the Past, and it was like the hugest jump. It was like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, this is so good.
Oh, I mean, I played the shit. I played it a lot. I just wasn't good enough to beat it, right? And so,
but yeah, Ocarina of Time that's hands down. It's just too good, man. And like, it was that first
the whole
full 3D.
Yeah, the whole feel of that game was incredible.
And the mechanic of like, you go back to you had the young and old, and just it was cool, man.
Well, and being able to play the little ocarina and
get the horse to show up, and it was just a cool fucking game.
Epona.
Yep. With the GameCube, one of the first games that got me into first-person shooters, because I don't know if people remember this, but first-person shooter controls used to be just freaking awful, and you just had to be like good at them, or you just weren't. It just wasn't fun. But one of the first ones that I powered through because I liked it so much and it made me better was Metroid Prime. I loved that game.
I never played it.
So right now they're working on Metroid Prime 4 because there was 3 of those games, and it was one of those things where it was in development. And nowadays, like, I mean, these days video game development can be years, like 4, 5, 6 years. And they had been in development for over a year or 2 years or whatever it was, and they reset development completely. Like Nintendo was like, we are not happy with this at all, and yeah, they just like square one. So it was like, it was like disheartening to the point where I was like, I need Metroid Prime 4 in my life on the Switch, but I want it to be good. So it's like, I get it. Thanks, Nintendo. Like, you crush my dreams, but you also kind of reinforce that fact that you want to put out good games. Right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I think, and I was kind of on and off of gaming for a while, and I think my next, after the GameCube and all that, and after that died out, and I didn't really get into any of the other systems at that point, my next foray into gaming was probably World of Warcraft for me.
Oh boy.
And that would have been, and I didn't even start it when it first came out. It was like a few years later.
I've never played World of Warcraft.
No.
I played, some of my buddies had EverQuest. I played a little bit of that.
That was like that OG, man.
Precursor to that. And I just never played online games much. I'm bad at games sometimes. I love them, but I'm bad at them. So playing with other people just makes it extenuated, right? It like accents how bad I am at the game because everybody else is much better.
Well, WoW is one of those games where you don't have to play it with other people. There's tons of people in the world with you, but you don't, like, you can do stuff and quest and do your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
But then that's the cool thing about it, I guess. And I've played it since, like I said, it came out in 2004, I think, but I didn't even start playing it until 2009 or 10.
Wow.
And I've played it pretty consistently. I mean, every expansion that's come out, I've played through.
Yeah.
I used to be really hardcore into it, but now it's like I'll play through the expansion. Like this last expansion, I haven't played in a couple months probably.
Oh yeah.
And it's just not something I just put that much time into anymore.
Yeah.
That was my next kind of jump into, and then I built a gaming PC, and I play a few games on there, but I still have an Xbox now. And
yeah, I'll be honest. I don't play much anymore, but dollar for dollar, what you get. I think the Switch might be the greatest system of all time.
Yeah, man, it's legit. I don't know
if I share that, but it's a gamer system
for sure.
It's for fun. It's not for like, it's not. I love things that aren't graphically accelerated. I love things that concentrate on the quality of the gameplay over graphics. They will sacrifice performance for quality of game, and I would prefer that all day long, and I've always been that way. I don't care if it looks a little worse.
Well, that's that problem is getting better, honestly, as gaming evolves, and it's just because game graphics just are good now. I mean, it's they just are. So now it's like
across the board.
So now you have to make a good game, and you can't rely on that so much anymore. So that problem is getting better, but I know what you mean, because there's some games on the Switch that don't hold a candle to some of the other graphics that are just amazing. Yeah, they're just really great. This might be blasphemy a little because being a Zelda fan, not a huge fan of Breath of the Wild, man. Like I played
it a little bit. Not a giant fan.
I do not like the weapon breaking thing.
Yeah, it's
and
really
always
annoying.
having to. And really some people love that aspect of it, and that's cool. So I'm a little bummed because they announced a new Zelda game, and it's a sequel. It's a Breath of the Wild 2, and I was like,
The world though.
Oh, it's great.
So big. It's
fantastic.
It's almost daunting when you realize how big it all is.
And it's truly open world.
Like and you're like, whoa.
You can literally go to you can go try to fight Ganon right when you walk out of the cave.
Yeah, you'll get that ass whipped.
Yeah, well, there's a guy that's done it. There's always some hardcore gamer that does a thing. But no, like that's one of those ones. But dude, talking back on the Mario stuff, Super Mario Odyssey, golly, that game's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I've heard good things.
It's so good, man.
Yeah.
I play the shit out of my Switch. I love it.
Yeah, I haven't played PlayStation 4 much. I watched my roommate play it from time to time, Jim. I watched him play that awful thing they called a Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 15. Don't get me started.
Yeah, you're not a fan of the 15, huh?
Oh boy, it's rough.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, they have played some emo gothic characters from time.
Well, that's the anime aesthetic, man.
But man, they went way overboard this time. And that car, your airship, what?
Yeah,
and you can crash and die.
Oh yeah,
that's absolutely so stupid.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I didn't even finish it. I had a little fun with it, but
I compared it to It's basically like Dynasty Warriors meets Final Fantasy.
Sure.
Where you just push a button over and over again and it does cool things.
The combat's a little bit more in depth than you think it is. Like you really can't just go in there smashing buttons. Like you gotta strategize a little bit.
I watched Jim play it, and boy, he just pushed that button over and over again a lot.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's pretty boring. He fought that giant ass turtle at the end of the game.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and literally just pushed the X button a lot until he beat it. Which I mean is basically how you would play Final Fantasy VII, but instead you would do up and down on a menu to pick a new move, then push X.
So, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that one, to be honest. It just wasn't whatever. What I've been playing lately is a game called Divinity: Original Sin 2. I don't know if you remember the Divinity games. They were computer games that were in the same vein as like Baldur's Gate. Isometric top-down RPGs, really in-depth and really...
You've piqued my interest.
Yeah. So it's a really great game. It's a really fantastic game. It's on PC, and I think it's on PlayStation and Xbox as well. But it comes from an old school... the Divinity games are old, like older, 2002 probably. I mean, old. Now, especially when I say that, it's like, shit, that's 18 years ago. Yeah. So they cut their teeth on that old school isometric RPG style, the click to move and turn-based combat, all that good stuff. And that's what this is. The reason I ended up buying it is it's on sale on Steam, is why I got it. But that's the company that did it is the same company that's doing Baldur's Gate 3 that's going to come out this year.
Oh, shit.
And Baldur's Gate 3 is based on 5th edition rules, and it's like...
It is 5th edition D&D.
Yep. There you go.
We played the fuck out of Baldur's Gate when we were younger.
Baldur's Gate 3, the main, like, the big bad guy, and I don't know the name or anything, but it's Mind Flayers. And so the trailer is like this little creepy parasite climbs into a guy's eye, and he gets all like crazy, and then he's like turns, and he's got the tentacles, and
that's dope.
Looks badass. So when I found out this company is the one that's doing it, I was like, oh, they've got this game out, and everybody's like, man, this game's badass. The complexity is there, and it's, it's. I don't even want to say it's easy to get into because that's pretty daunting. But you get into it and you start doing stuff, you're like, man, this is just fucking awesome. There's a little tutorial level, but even after that, you're like, oh. You basically pick your character, and you can pick a pre-made, or you can customize it a little bit, and you can even pick the story characters, and it has like some story missions with it, or you can just pick like like the different race, dwarf, elf, undead, whatever it is. So I'm playing with a rogue, which they're like, beginners shouldn't do rogue, and I'm like, I'm doing it anyway, but because it's like
difficult.
Yeah, you don't have the heals and all that, but you essentially can build a party of 4 with the different characters you meet. And all that, but it's it's a really complex RPG I'm with you on those. It's not a thrill a minute. You know what I mean?
No.
It's explore the place, dungeon dive, but it feels very D&D already because when you engage in a fight, it is turn based in the sense that you have action points, right? And I think generically you start with like 6 or something, and you can get different abilities that extend that and do other. And actually, it takes action points to move. And then action points to cast your spells and use your abilities. So you got to strategize. Like, all right, if I move here, I can't do this, and if I stay here, I can do these things. And it's I'm having a great time with that game.
That's awesome.
Check it out, Divinity: Original Sin 2.
And see,
they did not sponsor this.
I was
podcast.
Bad at a lot of action games, obviously, but like I can appreciate them from a distance, right? Like God of War when it came out was like, what the fuck is that?
Sure.
Holy cow, that's awesome. And, Dynasty Warriors. I play the shit out of Dynasty Warriors.
So the newest God of War, by the way, completely different than those originals.
Oh, yeah?
But amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's a very, it's like a Nordic Viking style.
Yeah.
And they tie it back to the other games because you're like, how are they going to do this? And they do it, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But it's a very, it's definitely an action combat as far as the way, but it's like you can't go in and hit no buttons. Like you have to like pay attention to shit.
I've never played, but I thought were always a really, really cool concept and looked awesome. Was the Assassin's Creed games?
Oh yeah, they're great. Yeah,
I've heard amazing things.
Black Flag was my favorite. The pirate ship one. Yeah. Apparently the newer ones are kind of a little more RPG-ish.
Oh.
They did one called Assassin's Creed Origins, which was like an Egypt thing, and then they did Odyssey, which was like Roman.
Yeah.
Like
this
style.
Is a great
and the
segue.
next one is
This is a great segue for us.
Yeah, the next Assassin's Creed is going to be rumored to be like Viking style.
Yeah.
So I'm like that.
That's
it's going to be cool, especially with the RPG elements and stuff in it.
If the nerds are still listening, let's go ahead and give a shout out to the greatest board game of all time.
Okay.
That has a similar thing. Time Stories.
Oh yeah, Time Stories, man. Any of you guys that like board games, you need to check that one out. It's so cool.
It's not a standard board game.
No, it's not. It's a co-op.
It's not what you're thinking.
Co-op thing, and it's just like this adventure. You got to figure stuff
It's
out.
impossible to describe.
You can't even explain it. But the cool thing is, you buy it. It comes with an adventure. I guess we can call it whatever you want to call that setup. But you can buy a little expansions, so to speak.
Scenarios.
Now, the one thing about it is that there's not a lot of replayability because you pretty much figure out the thing, and
Yeah, it's Quantum Leap.
Basically. Yeah. So it's time travel kinda, and you take over people.
You inhabit vessels.
It's super cool. Check that game out. It's badass. Time Stories.
But it has so many settings, a lot like the Assassin's Creed games, to where you're in a bunch of different places. There's a zombie one. There's a Egyptian one. There's an Antarctic expedition.
Almost
one
feels like the Thing, kind of like that whole thing. And for those of you that don't know, Josh and I, along with a couple of other buddies, we used to own a game shop. And when I say a game shop, I do not mean video games, but it was a card game, board game, pen and paper role-playing games, things like that.
Tabletop miniature games.
And I know we've bogged down a little bit here, but we're going to keep going because I'm having a good time with it.
I'm having fun.
We are D&D players, as we mentioned, and it is what it is. What's cool now, man, is 5th edition has really opened the floodgates into the mainstream, and I'm totally cool with it.
Yeah.
Because for so long, it was just a stigma of like what D&D was, and for good reason. I mean, there's definitely that element of like sitting in the basement eating Cheetos,
stinky nerds,
and drinking Mountain Dew and whatever. But now, when guys like Vin Diesel, is that who?
Yeah,
was?
when
he's like, hey, I play D&D, and then he did that Witch Hunter movie, which, by the way, last Witch Hunter, terrible, loved it. It's not very good, but I loved the shit out of it because of what it is. It's it's just like, okay, it's a throwaway movie, but it's fun to watch. It's such cheesy dialogue, very straightforward, what you would expect. But anyway, I'm not recommending it necessarily, but if you like kind of
over the toppy stuff,
and if you like that action adventure kind of not medieval, it takes place in modern times, but it kind of starts then, and whatever. It's a fun time. But yeah, you got people like that saying, oh yeah, I play D&D, and it's like, oh, and now you've even got like, these like attractive female actresses and stuff that are playing, and it's like, okay, that's cool.
That's a weird dynamic when you have an attractive lady that walks into a game store.
Well, here's the thing about that, and this is real, and it shouldn't be, but it is. There have been a lot of things about how women were shied away from it because it did. When you have a bunch of dudes that don't have any experience with talking to chicks, and then a lot of guys sitting in game stores, that's just the reality of it. Sometimes it get a little creepy.
Oh,
and it's like, dude,
it's awkward. As fuck sometimes.
So that's why I've heard girls say they've quit campaigns because someone was just creepy, and that was constantly. And what they were doing was they were trying to, oh, that's just my character, and it's like, well, you're making like these weird remarks, So, fellas out there that play D&D, if you're a nerd, you don't have to be creepy. Hey,
she's not going to date you.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and take that off the table. Just assume that's not a possibility.
Yep.
And just play like she's one of your bro dude friends.
Yep. And the thing
is, ladies, if you get tired of it aggressively all the time, just get a group of ladies together and play. Sure. We want more women to play these games.
Absolutely. But we can definitely do, and I'm not saying not me personally, but we as men who play games can definitely do better.
Yeah, because the more people there are playing games, the more people you have to play games with.
Yep. So
and that's what this is all about at the end of the day. We're going down like this memory road of what games and everything. But at the end of the day, games were about having fun. Sometimes you can play them insular by yourself, and that is also enjoyable. My fondest memories are sitting around with other people, though.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, our old Saturday game or for whatever, I don't know if you were in on those
Every
as much.
now and then, not
but
as much.
some of those old Saturday games, like it was just like Saturdays is for the boys type thing.
Yeah.
Because it was all guys, and we definitely were
Making
just
dick and fart jokes.
yeah.
and,
It was what it was.
Yeah.
But like I said, I do want people to know that like if you have girls that want to join your game, don't be creepy.
Play it cool, guys. Play it cool.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't try to hit on chicks just because they're sitting down to play a game with you.
This is our PSA to those dudes.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
Because she's not going to date you, bro.
Yep.
It's not happening.
And actually, if you play it cool, your chances actually rise of that
Yes.
happening.
Absolutely. If you pretend like she's not
Yeah.
a thing that is possible, then it might actually be possible. And just keep pretending like it's not possible. And then eventually she'll let you know, bro.
Sure.
You know.
So I hate that that's a thing, but it is a thing.
Yeah, no, it's real. We don't ignore real life problems in the world.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like if there's a real issue, I think we'll address it.
Absolutely.
And we'll give you our opinion on it.
But I would like to get back into some D&D. I know a lot of that. I went into hermit mode there for a while.
I play online now.
Oh, nice. Who do you play with?
Chris and Robert.
Are they using like Fantasy Grounds or
no? It's Roll20.
Roll20? Yeah.
We play. I've never done it. I was like, nah. I'm old school about it. I'm like, you got to sit in the same room as the same people because this is stupid.
Sure.
Because my son was playing D&D with a bunch of his friends and online mostly, and I was
Nice.
like, you guys are doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Oh, I can't believe you guys would have not play D&D in the same room.
With Roll20, does everyone have to like own something, or can you log into a thing? Or
As long as the
host or whatever.
host has the system, everybody else can log into it.
Okay.
It's pretty neat.
Man, I'd like to do that sometime.
Yeah, they're starting up an Eberron campaign on Tuesday nights. So you are, I'm sure they'd love to have you.
We'll ask him when he's here in a couple of days.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll work my way in there. I'm like, I'm coming.
Yeah, ooh.
Hey.
Oh.
We're doing the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be cool, man. Do you guys just voice chat it up? What do you use? Like
Discord.
Discord? Yeah, I've got one. I've got my own channel. I got my own Discord channel.
Oh, you could
son.
actually up the quality of the chat in
Yeah.
that bitch, because they just do the free one, I think.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Oh.
It's perfect. Like, I've never had an issue with
I
it.
got you. I didn't know. We just have the group channel or whatever, and
No,
everybody-
the Discord's free. There's no like paying for it.
Well, apparently you can pay a monthly fee and get a better quality or something. I don't know.
I never really noticed any bad. I mean,
No,
whatever.
we haven't.
I'm sure there is better quality.
Every now and then you'll come into an issue here, especially with this many people. That's the only problem is the chaos in the background.
I was going to say because that's what Discord. We use Discord in the. we're getting so nerdy right now for the WoW for the World of Warcraft guild I was in. That's what we use, and I mean it never.
No,
I mean we would have sometimes there'd be like 15 or 20 people
that's incredible.
in the same thing, but I mean that's one of those situations like if you're doing a raid or something, everyone knows to shut the fuck up unless you really have something to talk about. So
yeah, the only issue I've seen that we run into is people talking in the background. Right, it's fucking chaos.
tell people to put it on push to talk. We'd have to like hit control or something.
Oh yeah, maybe. All
Yeah.
right. You're a smarter nerd than the rest of us, dude. We're new to this
Or
thing.
set the threshold,
Yeah.
like whatever.
Yeah, I have no idea about it all.
Yeah, you can set it to push to talk.
I literally had to make I'm not like completely ignorant to it. I'm just completely ignorant to most of it.
Sure.
And it's like, Chris, help me set all of this stuff up so I can play D&D with you nerds.
I'd love to do that.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna ask him.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna. I'm doing it.
I told him I couldn't commit to the actual game all full time, but he was like, "Yeah, just pop in when you want." And so
I think I could do Tuesdays, especially if I don't have to leave my house.
yeah.
Why do I do that? We're really off the rails here.
You're
But I don't, whatever.
You're hungry.
Man, I don't. But the thing is, like, I'm like, when I get home from work, I'm like, don't talk to me, bro. Like, I don't
even look at me.
And I don't want to be that way, but I guess I don't know. Is that depression or something? I don't know what it is.
Nah, you're a piece of shit.
Help!
That's what it is.
Everybody help! Send support or whatever.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for,
Or
bro.
Xanax. I don't know.
That's
whatever.
why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah, I know it helps. It works, but it's not. It really isn't a depression thing. It's like
No.
this. I get home and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do anything else.
I feel the same way.
Because I have a job. You have a job that's like more physically taxing. I think mine is like I just look at a bunch of fucking numbers all day, and I have to like problem solve a lot. And I just by the time I'm done, I'm just.
I get to the point where mine's physically and mentally
Sure.
to some extent. Because
I wasn't trying to.
Yeah, no, I'm basically a walking chemist all day long.
Yeah.
And so if I fuck up, it's
Josh makes meth for a living.
Yeah.
For those who don't know.
Yeah, Heisenberg. But if
he has a mobile meth lab. Oh.
So, but yeah, I'm a walking chemist, and there's fucking several different types of grass. You put the wrong shit on the wrong grass, and then all of a sudden it's a big deal. You wouldn't think it, and so it can be a little stressful moments, and then you just treat the same type of grass for fucking 20 minutes, and I mean for like 6-7 hours, and all of a sudden you zone out all day long.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what I've been doing is to try to alleviate some of that is I just listen to podcasts.
Yep.
While I'm doing that stuff, because for the most part I can listen and hear what's going on there,
absorb
and
some
just
of it, yeah.
Plug in the numbers that I have to plug in and do my thing. But anyway, we definitely got off the rails here, but that's kind of what we do, and it just is what it is. But I think that's a good stopping point here. We've talked about a lot of games, and
we'll revisit the subject.
Absolutely,
we'll make like a cool top 5, top 10 list or something.
We love games too much to not do that.
Yeah.
But the point is, get out there and play some games, play some video games, play some. Go play Yahtzee. I don't give a shit.
Go play D&D. Most importantly.
D&D.
And hey, PSA for everybody that's never played D&D. It's not what you think. You're not sitting around fucking nerding out all night long and pretending to be Gwar from the planet whatever. Sometimes you make dick and fart jokes.
The thing too is, and this happens a lot, and I hear this from a lot of people. When it comes to like dragons, they're like, "Oh, dragons!" And they think I'm like, first of all, dragons are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's not all that. It's not that.
It's like, rarely about the dragons.
But I mean, even just those things. Like, it's really just a bunch of people
sitting around having a good time,
doing this like interactive storytelling.
Yeah, it's interactive storytelling, and it's much more boring until you hindsight go back and look at the things you've done as a group.
Yeah.
And you look at it as an overarching thing. Chris does this cool thing, actually. Before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
Chris does this cool thing where in Roll20 you can do a description of the session.
Oh, cool.
And it's like a story of what you guys did in the session.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so he like literally types it all out and is planning to do like a book eventually.
I love it. Yeah. Chris Wynn's he's a good DM.
Oh, yeah.
Being a DM's hard too.
Oh, it's impossible.
So if you do play,
especially when I'm playing,
if you do play D&D, find someone who's going to be a good DM, or don't just go in there and play. Get out there and play some games. Yeah, like I said, we'll revisit this at some point. We appreciate you if you're still here. We appreciate it. Sorry if we bogged down on you and got way out of and left field there, but
out in the weeds.
Yeah, we love it all. So thanks for listening, everybody. Play some video games, abandon your real life responsibilities,
fuck bitches, get money,
absolutely, and
whatever the rappers are saying.
Always remember to stay rad.